In a forgotten village, nestled deep in a valley where no sunlight ever seemed to fully penetrate, stood a tree. Not just any tree. This one had a name whispered by those who dared to speak of it. The Whisper Tree. Its gnarled, twisting branches loomed over the land like crooked fingers reaching for the sky, and its bark was a deep, unnatural black that seemed to absorb the surrounding light. No birds perched on its limbs, and no animals ventured near it, for there was something wrong with this tree, something old and malevolent. The villagers spoke of it only in hushed tones, claiming to hear voices whenever the wind passed through its branches. No one dared approach it after dark. For centuries, the tree had been a fixture of the valley, and many believed it was cursed. Children, with their natural curiosity, would sometimes venture too close, only to be pulled back by frantic parents who swore that if you listened too long to the whispers, you'd lose your mind, or worse, your soul. One night, under a moonless sky, a young woman named Laura returned to the village after years of being away. She had left as a child, too young to remember much, but she had always been haunted by vague memories of the tree. It called to her in her dreams, soft, mournful whispers echoing in her mind, urging her to return. Lara's mother had warned her before her death. Asterisk, never go back to the valley. Never listen to the whispers. Asterisk. But the whispers had become louder. They scratched at the back of her skull, muttering things she could never fully understand. And so, drawn by an invisible force, she returned. The village was nearly abandoned now, with only a few flickering lights glowing in the distance. But as she made her way through the old, crumbling streets, Laura felt it, the pull of the tree. Her feet moved as if guided by some unseen force, leading her to the heart of the valley, where it stood in all its dark, towering glory. As she approached, the air grew cold, unnaturally so. The temperature dropped sharply, and the ground beneath her feet felt damp, as though the earth was rotting. She noticed something else, an odd metallic scent that clung to the air. It was faint but unmistakable, the smell of blood. Lara's pulse quickened. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stood at the edge of the clearing, staring at the tree. Its branches were eerily still, despite the wind picking up around her. And then she heard it, a soft, guttural whisper. It wasn't coming from the wind or the rustling of leaves. It came from within the tree itself. The sound crawled through the air, pressing against her ears like a low chant. She stepped closer, her breath visible in the frigid air. Her fingers grazed the bark, and the whispers intensified, becoming clearer. They were voices, countless voices, overlapping, merging, and fading into one another. Some cried for help, others laughed maniacally, and a few simply repeated her name. The sound was maddening, a cacophony of despair, fear, and insanity. Suddenly, her hand recoiled from the bark. It wasn't what she had touched. It felt like flesh. The bark was slick, cold, and pulsing, as if the tree itself were alive, breathing in unison with her. Dark sap oozed from the cracks in the bark, thick and viscous, like coagulated blood. A memory flashed in her mind. A child, her, as a young girl, standing before the tree, watching in horror as something was buried at its base. No, someone. The villagers had long buried their sins beneath this cursed tree, thinking it would keep their secrets safe. But the tree had fed on those sins, growing stronger, hungrier. Now, as Lara stood before it, she understood. The tree didn't just whisper, it consumed. It devoured the souls of those buried beneath it. And in return, it whispered their final moments, their pain, their fear, their regret. And now it wanted her. She tried to step back, but her legs refused to move. The ground beneath her feet felt alive, roots twisting around her ankles, holding her in place. The whispers became deafening, a chorus of suffering filling her mind. Her vision blurred, and she could feel something pulling at her thoughts, trying to tear them from her, one by one. The tree hungered. In her panic, Lara realized the truth. The tree wasn't just cursed, it was a prison, a living tomb for the damned. And now, it wanted to add her to its collection. A sharp pain shot through her skull, and she screamed, clutching her head as the whispers grew louder, clearer. She could hear the voice of her mother now, soft and broken. Don't listen, Lara. Run. But it was too late. The tree's roots tightened their grip, and the ground seemed to open up beneath her, swallowing her legs whole. The bark split open in front of her, revealing something horrific. A face, twisted in agony, stretched across the surface like melted wax. Other faces began to emerge, contorted and screaming in silent torment. The whispers turned into a roar, drowning out everything else as the tree's roots pulled her deeper into the earth. The ground swallowed Lara up to her knees now, the cold, wet earth crawling up her legs like a living parasite. Her heart pounded violently in her chest as she thrashed against the tightening roots, but it was no use. The tree had her. The grotesque faces etched into the bark were all staring at her now, their eyes wide, unblinking, as if frozen in eternal terror. The whispers merged into a single, guttural voice, deep and full of ancient malice. You are ours now. Lara screamed again, but the sound barely escaped her throat before being consumed by the surrounding cacophony. Desperation clawed at her mind, and she grabbed at anything within reach, branches, rocks, the damp soil beneath her fingernails, but nothing gave way. The tree's roots dragged her deeper, inch by inch, pulling her toward its gaping, pulsating maw of darkness. Suddenly, a sickening jolt of pain exploded in her chest. Her hands flew to her sternum, where the sensation of something foreign, alive, slithered beneath her skin. Her vision blurred as she watched the black, oily sap of the tree seep into her veins, crawling upward, curling around her heart. The roots weren't just dragging her into the ground. They were inside her now, burrowing. She felt the tendrils writhing beneath her flesh, weaving their way through her muscles, veins, and bones. The tree was claiming her from the inside out. Each movement became excruciating. The pain radiated through her body like molten iron, scorching her nerves. Her mind began to fracture under the strain, and through the agony, the whispers grew softer, almost gentle, as if soothing her, luring her deeper into the abyss. Become part of the tree, Lara. Let go. Her vision dimmed as the world around her dissolved into shadows, and for a moment, she considered it, letting go, allowing herself to become one with the darkness. The tree promised peace, an end to the pain. But in the depths of her breaking mind, another memory surfaced. Her mother's face, twisted with fear, as she pleaded with Lara to never return to the valley. Run, Lara. Don't listen to them. Never listen to the whispers. The memory cut through the fog of despair, and with a surge of willpower, Lara fought back. She screamed again, a guttural, primal sound, and with all her remaining strength, she pulled at the roots binding her legs. Blood dripped from her torn skin, but she didn't care. The pain was nothing compared to the fate that awaited her if she gave in. The tree resisted, pulling harder, its roots tightening around her like a vice. The faces in the bark contorted in fury, mouths opening wide in silent screams of protest as they strained toward her, trying to pull her into their eternal torment. But something inside Lara had awakened, a spark of defiance, a refusal to become another whisper in the wind. With a final, desperate scream, she yanked her legs free from the earth, tearing through the roots with a sickening snap. The pain was unbearable, but she didn't stop. She stumbled backward, her legs heavy with mud and blood, her breath ragged as she staggered away from the tree. The whispers grew louder again, angrier, a chaotic chorus of enraged voices. The ground beneath the tree rumbled, and the branches above her head twisted violently, as if the tree itself was furious at her escape. But Lara didn't look back. She ran, her legs screaming in agony, her heart pounding in her chest. Behind her, the tree's roots thrashed against the earth, reaching for her, but they were too slow. The further she got from the tree, the fainter the whispers became, until they were nothing more than a distant hum in the back of her mind. She collapsed just outside the clearing, her body trembling with exhaustion. The village lay ahead, dark and silent, but she couldn't stop yet. She knew the tree wasn't finished with her. The sap still coursed through her veins, its dark presence gnawing at the edges of her consciousness. Even as she lay gasping for air, she could feel it. The tree's hold on her had not been fully severed. Lara looked down at her arms, the black veins still faintly visible beneath her skin, pulsing in rhythm with the whispers that now lived inside her mind. The tree had marked her. She was no longer free. Lara lay on the cold earth, her body trembling as the whispers began to recede. For a moment, there was silence, a brief, suffocating pause where the weight of what had happened settled over her. She touched her chest where the black veins pulsed faintly beneath her skin, a permanent reminder of the tree's touch. It was still inside her, part of her. She would never truly escape it. Panic surged through her veins. What had she become? She could feel the whispers stirring again, like the rustle of dead leaves in her mind. They were weaker now, but persistent, burrowing into her thoughts, twisting them. Asterisk. You're one of us now. Asterisk. No. She couldn't let that happen. Not fully. She had escaped the tree, but the darkness had followed. She staggered to her feet, each step a fresh wave of pain, and made her way toward the village, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. Her mind spun with a single thought. There had to be a way to sever the tree's hold on her. The village was eerily quiet, its abandoned houses standing like tombstones under the darkened sky. Shadows stretched unnaturally long across the cobbled streets, as if the night itself was closing in on her. She reached the old chapel, a relic from the days when the villagers still clung to hope that some higher power would save them from the evil lurking in the valley. Pushing open the creaking wooden doors, Lara stumbled inside. The air smelled of dust and decay, the pews covered in thick layers of grime. At the far end of the chapel stood a stone altar, and behind it, a faded tapestry depicting a strange symbol, a twisted tree with roots spreading out like dark tendrils. Her breath caught in her throat. She had seen that symbol before, on the tree itself, carved deep into its bark. It was ancient, older than the village, older than the chapel, a symbol of the curse. The whispers began again, louder this time, filling the empty chapel with their eerie chant. Lara clutched her head, trying to block them out, but they pressed against her mind like nails scraping at her thoughts. Asterisk, the tree lives within you. You cannot escape it. You cannot escape us. Asterisk, in desperation, she collapsed at the altar, her hands searching for anything that could save her. Her fingers brushed against something cold and metallic, hidden beneath the dust-covered tapestry. A dagger. It was old, its blade blackened with age, but it hummed with an unnatural energy. Lara felt a surge of recognition. The dagger had been crafted to destroy the cursed tree, to sever its hold on the land, and, perhaps, to sever its hold on her. Her pulse quickened. She knew what she had to do. With trembling hands, she gripped the dagger and plunged it into her chest. The pain was immediate, a sharp, searing agony that ripped through her body, but she didn't stop. She twisted the blade deeper, blood spilling over her hands as she sliced through the black veins that pulsed with the tree's poison. The whispers turned to screams, a deafening roar that filled her mind, but she kept going, dragging the blade through her flesh, cutting away the tree's corruption. The darkness inside her thrashed, trying to fight back, but it was weakening. The deeper the blade went, the weaker the whispers became, until finally, they were nothing more than a faint echo in the back of her mind. With a final gasp, Lara collapsed to the floor, the dagger still buried in her chest. Her vision blurred, her heartbeat slowing as her lifeblood pooled around her. But there was peace in the silence. The tree's hold on her had been broken. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was the chapel's ceiling, the symbol of the twisted tree fading into the shadows. And then there was nothing. When the villagers returned the next morning, they found her body in the chapel, the dagger still clutched in her hands. They knew, as they looked upon her pale, lifeless form that the curse of the Whisper Tree had finally been broken. But as they carried her body away, none noticed the faint whispers still echoing in the valley, carried by the wind, soft and insidious. The tree was gone, but its hunger remained. And somewhere, deep beneath the earth, its roots stirred once more.